faculty, and then later with the Alliance Symphony Orchestra. Today I'm chatting with Samuel Atkinson, a senior at Mount Union, and a double major in mechanical engineering and music. Samuel is also a strong pianist himself, and in the early part of my preparation he will help me by being my rehearsal pianist. His role basically is to cram all of the notes of the orchestra part into the piano and play them on a second piano, essentially be my orchestra for the early rehearsals of the performance. Luckily he didn't have to write the orchestral reduction, as it's already readily available by many other orchestrators. But as another musician involved in this journey, and one who could offer a student perspective, I wanted to see if we could use this opportunity to help our viewers get to know your point of view. So let's start early. What drew you to the piano?
Well, that's a good question. I'd say very early on, I had a drawing to the piano just for its little mechanics. As a toddler, I'd go over and just want to play with all the buttons, and then I had early instruction from my grandmother.
So there's a piano in your home?
Yes, there's a piano in my home, and I have four older siblings that were taking lessons with me from our grandmother. So we all played this piano, and I started to enjoy it more and more, just loving how it can express a melody, and you can have fun with it and kind of express a melody with it. So I started to fall quite in love with it and carried on after many of them dropped off.
That's right. The sole survivor of
Yes.
piano lessons.
Yes, right. Yep, that was great.
So tell us about your double major. So obviously music is a passion for you,
Yes.
but there's mechanical engineering. How did you end up a double major?
Yeah, so that was a little bit tricky in my brain to try to decide if I should even carry on both majors. But while I was in high school, I started to realize that I did have that, interest in mathematics and science, and my parents could see that, and we knew that I had a passion for music, but perhaps I should pursue the engineering route of things as well. And I'm quite happy that I have pursued it, but it's been difficult, to say nonetheless. It's been difficult to balance all the different types of labs from the engineering side, but also all the rehearsals and everything from music. So I can say pretty confidently that I do enjoy both majors, but it's been quite a juggling act as I've gone throughout these 4 years. Yeah.
Right. And it's interesting because your journey is a little bit different than a lot of students. I think a lot of students who have two very strong interests end up coming and experiencing both at the college level and then picking one or the other.
Yes.
And for you, it's turned out to maybe appeal to two sides of your brain, or
Right.
two sides of your personality, and so each of them has continued as a strong interest. But what drew you to Mount Union?
So that is where I feel if I was just pursuing only music or only engineering, I could have gone to many different schools. But oftentimes when I would go to these different schools into that freshman year in college, they were saying that it would be too difficult to balance each of those majors, and to try to put them together into one program would be far too difficult in a 4-year program. So I was looking around, and when I came to Mount, they said that I would be able to work with them, work with my advisors, be able to balance that schedule quite easily, and that just working through it, it'd be able to help me to carry out both of those majors in those 4 years. So that's the greatest appeal that I can say I received from Mount Union, and I've seen it in these 4 years. I've had a lot of work from both the engineering and the musical side of things that help me pursue both of those degrees.
Right. I think it's something that you can craft for an individual student, and especially at a small school.
Yes.
The advising can be much more individualized and personalized.
Right.
So we're glad to have you in both programs. I mean, I don't speak for engineering, but I'm sure they're glad to have you there as well.
It's been nice, yeah.
So you are graduating in May with a mechanical engineering degree, and then will come back as a postgraduate student to finish up your music degree. And I am looking forward to getting you all to the music side for a semester. But on the musical side, tell us some of your favorite composers. Do you have any?
Yes, so I could probably be agreed upon with many other musicians when I say, obviously, Chopin and Beethoven, some of the great names. I'd say Chopin is probably my favorite composer.
Yay, the person of the day.
No, I was gonna say, I'm probably gonna get that little endorsement for even mentioning yes.
That's right, that works.
Yes, but I do believe that Chopin encompasses just so many amazing emotions that I can relate to myself. And that's not to take away from other composers such as Beethoven, but just as I've played different Chopin pieces, I've played the Scherzo No. 2, the Ballade. These pieces, for whatever reason, when I play them, I feel a deep connection to past experiences in my life, and I've just had that connection so deeply that I have to admit the pieces that I have worked with, I've realized that I absolutely love Chopin. Like I said, Beethoven is certainly a close second, and surprisingly enough, as you and I have worked on some of these Bach pieces, that I've really enjoyed Bach. So again, kind of three big name composers, but in that order, I'd say those are certainly some of my favorites.
Perhaps big names for a good reason.
Yes.
I think sometimes people gain notoriety for the wrong reasons. Some of these classical composers definitely set themselves apart by just the sheer quality and number of masterpieces they've produced.
Absolutely.
We're talking about Chopin, and Chopin was part of that 19th century where composers really aimed to express their deepest emotions in music. And so because we have Chopin essentially wearing his heart on his musical sleeve,
Yes.
then it is easier for us as performers and oftentimes for the audience to relate to those emotions
Absolutely.
immediately. So I can't disagree. I really like Chopin, obviously, and I think we'll be in for a treat with the Piano Concerto No. 1, definitely.
Absolutely.
Talk to us a little bit about some favorite piano experiences. So there are many
Okay.
moments in your journey, obviously, from pushing the right buttons as a
Yeah.
toddler to
Yes.
today. What are some moments that you recall very fondly at the piano?
Yeah, so I could say one of my earliest memories would probably be back when I was, I don't know, maybe 6 years old. It was the first time I played for the church. I just played Canon in D as a prelude, and that was the first time I'd ever performed for people more so than just my family. So that's kind of what drew me to that performance reality, that it could bring other people enjoyment just for listening.
Hey, I can share this.
I
This
can
is really
share.
cool.
Absolutely. So that was a very early memory, as well as that first recital with my second teacher, where we're all there with all these many other students, and I can recall a couple memory slips in that performance, but nonetheless taking that bow and thinking, I did this. I was able to share this with another audience. Another great experience. Coming to high school, I had my senior recital, and that was kind of the capstone of my high school experience, I'd say, and even the years prior to. It was with the same teacher I'd been with for many years, and being able to present a lot of music, both classical, actually from many different eras, and some really just fun pieces that I enjoyed playing.
So you played some church music arrangements.
Yes,
too,
church
and
arrangements.
That's such a big part of your life that it brings a lot of facets.
Yes. Yeah, I was able to incorporate so many feelings, even just from my own lifetime, into that recital, and I feel like it really was a capstone to my education from a young student into those high school years, as well as just the music that I enjoyed. And it was a lot of fun programming that whole recital together. And I'd say probably more recent, performing different recitals here at Mount Union has been extraordinary. My sophomore year, I did the solo recital, and that was a very similar experience, but again, that higher rate of growth here at this college was just an excellent experience to be able to share that type of music and feel that accomplishment, to say I can do this, I can memorize this music and enjoy it so much in those moments.
So this is a tangential question, but maybe it'll be an interesting one, because so many of us are, I'll just speak for myself, one-trick ponies. I play the piano, I love to play the piano, but you really have dedicated yourself to two different areas. It's interesting that they're so very different, and our society often considers sciences, mathematics to be the serious pursuits of life, and music sometimes is relegated to the extracurricular and the fun, and it might not be so much work, a lot of people say. And I'd be interested in your opinion about the comparison of the challenges, the varied challenges of the two areas.
Sure. Yeah. So it is true from engineering. There's a difficulty that many people can easily see on paper. I think that there's a lot of hours invested in the classroom, but that's been its own difficulty. But the other side of music, where it's very individual. It's a solo piece of music that I'm normally working on, and it takes its own amount of time, its own amount of difficulty, and that certainly speaks for itself. When you mention the seriousness of that type of engineering work versus maybe a little bit more happy-go-lucky piano music, that I would agree that I think that's a perception that many people share, but I would have to disagree that piano music can be very serious. All music can be very, very serious, and it can speak some of the most serious, I guess, literature from your heart that you can't always express into words. So if I could express something from Bach, where it seems very mathematical, it can be quite serious. There's some traits that follow both music and engineering that
Right, very structured music
yes.
from J.S. Bach, very
Yes.
intellectual, contrapuntal. Yes, sometimes it's I can see that connection to the mathematical side of engineering, sure.
Absolutely. People, oftentimes I'll tell them that those are my two majors, and they give me a questionable look and they say, that there's no way that relates. And I think, well, I don't know. There's some things that will overlap. When I turn in the engineering project and I feel delighted, I might go to the piano and play something more delightful. But there's certainly a mathematical approach to both. There's so much mathematics in rhythm. You see so many strange rhythms against 7 against 4, 3 against 2, all these things that you really have to think about intellectually just as you would in a mathematics study. So, yeah.
And perhaps there's, having started as a math and music double major myself, I think there is a different type of challenge, perhaps a more emotional challenge in music that we don't necessarily find in the more abstract sciences sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I think challenges humanity in a different way, which I think all of these pursuits are very worthwhile, but they appeal to different sides of our lives, different sides of our personalities. So it's a little bit like comparing apples and oranges, to compare the importance or the seriousness of very different fields like that, because I think they appeal to different sides, both of them very necessary
Yes.
to human being thriving and society thriving in general. So just wanted to get your input about the two very different majors.
Yes.
So you competed a couple of times in our concerto competition, so tutti, and the winner of that competition gets a chance to perform with the Alliance Symphony. And one time in your freshman year, you were playing Mozart Concerto Movement, and you were runner-up, or honorable mention, that's what it is, and you were invited to play with the symphony anyway. And then the second time around, you won with the Mendelssohn Concerto Movement, and so you got to play twice with the
Yes.
Alliance Symphony, which is a fantastic opportunity for a young pianist. And one of the good things about studying at a small school, you don't have all the doctoral students
Absolutely.
swiping those juicy opportunities from you.
Yes.
How did you feel competing in solo con tutti competition, and how did it feel to win and play with the Alliance Symphony as a result?
Yeah, so I'd say in the competition process, there is little added motivation to get on that piano, start practicing more hours than I think I really have ever for a piece of music. I'd say both for the Mozart as well as the Mendelssohn. Those pieces I dedicate a lot of time to, and
Let me interrupt for a
Yes.
minute. When you say hours, what are we talking about? 2 hours a week?
oh no, I'd say in those, especially the weeks coming up, I'd say closer to 2, 3, maybe 4 hours a day, and I would have wanted to practice a bit more, I think, as many would, but yeah, balancing those hours in a week can be very difficult, just between the other studies and when do I get to eat and when do I get to sleep. So yes, yes, the essentials. You start to balance these things, because that type of competition and experience that you are so hoping for once in a lifetime, depending on how far you take that education. So I had a lot of motivation behind myself to really drive and get to that work and get to those pieces. So that competition, when I heard that I at least got that honorable mention for the Mozart, that was such a breath, sigh of relief, I can say, because just knowing that, yes, validation for that work, an opportunity to work with an orchestra that I had never had before. So that was an amazing experience. And then for the Mendelssohn, it was very similar, a little bit more virtuosic piece, so a little bit more time, I'd say, spent with very technical finger work, and being able to win that competition, I'd say that not only validation just for that own piece, but almost validation for all the work that I'd invested at that point. Just to say, I've done this, I was able to win this competition and have that honor to play with an exceptional orchestra. It was a great experience.
I think I've mentioned in one of the previous videos that because I went to large schools, I came as close as second in one of these student competitions, but I never had a chance to play, and that's one of those things that I treasure about our experiences at Mount Union, that we can offer those to students, so they don't have to wait until they're fully grown professionals to experience such things. It's such an important part of our growth, playing not just music just for the piano, but music with other instruments, whether it's a small group or a large orchestra. You've done a lot of accompanying for the department as part of your scholarship requirement as a pianist. How do you enjoy being a collaborative pianist? Some positives and challenges that you want to share with?
Yes.
As compared to playing solo music.
Right. So I'd say with that collaborative work, a positive is definitely that you get to learn new music. And it's new music that's not just a solo piece, but it's with an ensemble or perhaps another soloist, where you don't take the lead role necessarily, and you don't get to make all the choices for the tempo you're taking, the dynamic passage you're going to take for this piece. But
so are you putting that in the challenge or positive column?
Well, I was going to say it does double dip. So for the positive case, it can be that you will grow musically. You will absolutely grow in your collaborative work, obviously, that you need to communicate with this person, and you're going to grow intellectually and musically in that process. A challenge, though, is that you do need to step down from that leadership role. You need to know that you are no longer the soloist, and it's now time to communicate with someone who is the soloist. They're going to tell you exactly how they want you to play this, and you now need to, refine how you're going to play. You might need to take every one of your dynamics down a little bit and know that in giving the accompaniment, you need to also give way to what they are wanting to instruct. So yeah, I'd say another challenge, I can recall a couple times where I didn't necessarily enjoy the piece, especially starting out, so it can be a little difficult to try to get yourself to practice that. But nonetheless, after every single performance, I can recall working collaboratively. It's that sigh of relief that we did it, and it was a team effort instead of feeling all alone just as a soloist. So.
It's one of the things about solo piano, we spend so much of our time alone with the instrument, and sometimes it could be very freeing. Like you said, we can make all the choices interpretively. Sometimes with a collaborative artist on stage, that is a team effort that gives us some support, even just in the confidence that we have stepping on stage with other people, instead of feeling like the whole responsibility is on our shoulders. How does it feel now that we've started rehearsing the Chopin Concerto together? How does it feel being rehearsal pianist versus being on the other side? Because when you learned your concerto movements for the competition, I think you learned that many teachers do that. Now you're on the flip side, so I'm the soloist, you're doing the accompanying. How do those two experiences differ?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question, because in some ways it's not terribly difficult from just a normal lesson. I'm able to receive instruction for how I'm supposed to play, how I'm supposed to complement your playing. But something that's quite unique to me is that being able to hear your playing as I am, every measure is almost like its own little lesson for me. It's an opportunity for me to listen and hear exactly how you're executing these notes that I can follow myself on the page. So what's interesting, if I were to accompany another student, is that we have to listen in the moment. We have to make, normally, we'll make an oral suggestion for what we think should be done differently, but it's all just kind of guessing on how can we make this more musical. In terms of working with you, there's something quite remarkable about working with that professional to be able to listen to every one of those notes and take note for how is that being executed, how is this passage different from the previous. And like I said, it's like every moment, every measure that comes by, it's a learning opportunity for me, even if it's not even expressed orally between us. It's quite an awesome experience.
I'm glad to hear that. I think back to my student days and how awesome it was to hear my teachers perform, because I was fortunate enough that all of my teachers in undergraduate and graduate school continued to perform, and it's just such a treat to hear the person that's guiding your own education do what they're teaching you to do on stage. I mean, I even cherish the times when I had a team of teachers in graduate school, husband and wife team of Elizabeth and Eugene Pridenoff, and they played dual piano, so they did a lot of two piano work, and that's considered chamber music, so you use the score, and they needed page turners, and it was my favorite things to do, because I was right there, I was on stage, I was in rehearsal with them, and I had to pay attention and be involved in the experience. I remember one particular time, just Mr. Pridenoff, I was turning pages for him, and he was short on rehearsal time. He said, "Myra, see the last note on this page? I need to see this note, and I need to see the first note on the next page." I said, "Well, sir, that is not possible time-wise."
There's zero time for that.
But it was just such a neat experience to get to be part of that rehearsal process and see their timeline and their preparation.
Absolutely.
Whether it's they've played together for decades and they know each other really well, or whether it's just a really pressured environment where I have to play this, so I need every help I can get.
Exactly.
And they always played beautifully, but I remember that time too, of just feeling like you learn from all experiences with your teachers.
Absolutely.
So I can appreciate what you're saying.
Absolutely.
So you are graduating with your mechanical engineering degree in May, and on the musical side, after that, tell us some of your musical plans, some exciting things coming up. Repertoire you're going to learn or perform, performances, future plans, any of that.
Sounds good. Yeah, so following that graduation in May, I'll be able to invest all my time now, hopefully, for that musical side in the following fall. And in terms of repertoire, I'll be continuing work in Beethoven Sonata, as well as some Bach movement, and I think some Debussy as we get involved in some closer to modern day stuff. And so that's going to be a lot of fun. What I'm preparing for is that senior recital in the fall, so I'm very excited to get all this music on my fingers and into memory, so that's a lot of fun. But even following that, I have some plans to look further into grad school to continue my education in music and just see how far it can take me. It's since day one, it's been a passion of mine, but I do want to see how far might it take me. I always have the engineering degree in my back pocket, and to fall back on it if I would need to, but it's a running question in my mind on how far can I really take music, and I'm quite eager to see what that answer might be.
I find that that's one of the most fulfilling and frustrating aspects of music, the fact that it's never finished. It's very much an infinite process, an infinite product. I think it describes our experiences as human beings so beautifully, because there's always something more we could do, always something more we can yearn towards. So there are always more practice hours, there are always more pieces we can learn, and from that standpoint, I think it's very satisfying, but at the same time very frustrating to be a musician, because they're always not finished.
Yes, never finished.
Well, thank you, Samuel. I really appreciate your time. And we hope you stay tuned to our series, Prelude to a Masterpiece, to meet other musicians involved in the upcoming performances and to hear more rehearsal clips of the music. We'd also like to take questions from you. So if you have questions for me or any of the people involved in this wonderful adventure, please go to the Mount Union website at the directory or my Keys to Artistry website and send questions our way. I'll be happy to get them answered in a future video. Thank you so much.